and welcome to a new NSL live talk. We are at the conclusion of the 8-way competition of the NSL Cloud Mondial, which is, as everybody knows by now, probably kind of a replacement event for the Mondial 2020, which was supposed to take place this year and didn't because of the coronavirus impact and all the implications of it. But it is exciting now anyway, because we have Matt Davidson here again. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Kurt.
And Jeremie Rollett from France there again.
Hello.
And it will be very exciting to look at what we got so far in this competition, and then on top of this, discuss it, comment it, and see what happened and what will come and all those kind of things. We had a previous conversation already about it, so we are prepared for that as good as we could, but we want to start from the beginning. So we are beginning with looking at the first 4 rounds, which was kind of resembling the first day of competition, as it is at a World Meet or World Cup or USBA Nationals, wherever there's always a first day. And our first day was 4 competition rounds. And we will first look at this, and Matt and Jeremie, you will give us a summary of the what we saw actually on the first 4 rounds, if you may. While we are looking at those jumps at the same time, so we will turn on now and begin with rounds 1 and 4. Here they are, and please tell us the story of whatever we call the first day of the competition. Thank you for our supporters here, first of all. Performance is one of them. And it begins with the German national team, Airbus. What happened with the Germans in the first 4 rounds?
The exit was good, and the first block on the hill as well. When the end of 21 is a little bit long, and the key is coming from the back without bust, but yes, it was close to the bust. And for the rest of the jump, it's okay. The blocks are good. One time it's a little bit wide in a 21, and but the randoms were not so bad, and the 22 it's never easy to do, and they did it great. Great job for the first round.
So Matt will probably continue now with round 2, and then also a little summaries. I remember that that yesterday the Germans got, when we discussed it already, that you gave the Germans a lot of credit for something. And
absolutely, the Germans started off. I think the round 1 was pretty good. In general, it seemed to me that the Germans were kind of their formations were breathing away from the center point, and maybe you could see that they've done a bit of tunnel training, but maybe not as much outdoor training for whatever reason at this point. All teams have a lot of challenges with the COVID-19 situation. But it seemed like in the later rounds that they really started to double down on their discipline and their focus on the setups and the fundamentals that really make a skydive work. And I think they did a really, really solid job of that in the later rounds, as we'll see here. The U.S. team here, as we see, started out with a commanding performance in the first 4 rounds, and ended up after the 4th round with a 5-point lead. And then we see into day 2, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but day 2 that situation changes a bit, and we can talk about that more later. But here they had a good jump with a 19.
And the last team in round 1 that we will see is the French national 8-way team. And we'll give it back to Jeremie. Probably you can point out some of the team members in there, so
Yeah,
people
but
know how to identify them.
the first one is the video man. So it was NJ in exit. So yeah, they lose on the first day. I think they lose 2 points with the video exit video. So it was not perfect, and it was one burst as well in M. They didn't wait. Alban. Alban is the youngest guy in the team in tail, so it was a little bit late in M, and the key man didn't look too much after him. So it was a one burst for the team. For the rest, it was good. For me, it was okay. Also one time, the first 22, the two pieces stay a little bit stuck outside, so it was a little bit more long. For this round, the top score will be around 22-23 for the top teams, I think. So they are a little bit lower, but it's not so bad.
And here comes round 2 of the German team, Airbus. And yesterday we did, when we looked at some of the stuff, we used the German performance to learn the sequence a little bit. Matt, what do we have here in round 2?
So here we've got a solid exit. Throughout the competition, the Germans had a nice solid exit frame, which is obviously great to have. You know, it's critical in order to start the skydive off on a good note. Here, what I'm seeing is that we lose some efficiency through the point and tail axis. Things are rotating a little bit, which you tend to lose efficiency there. We saw a little glitch, maybe a brain lock or something there, which costs a little bit of time, and the fives are starting to get a little bit stretchy. But all in all, not too terrible aside from the one issue they had on the J build there.
And you can just continue actually with your teammates, because Airspeed XP8 is actually your team. You haven't jumped with them at the competition yet. Actually, you have not made any outdoor jump with them until this point, because you are still recovering. But you will be back soon.
I did a camp in Arizona with them before I had to get my total hip replacement surgery. But yeah, not as much as I'd like to, for sure. But looking forward to camp coming up here in December. So we had an issue there. Got a bust. So you can see that some of the fives are having the issue here where they're over rotating just a little bit between the point tail axis. It looks like they've got a little more go for it in this round, but not quite as much discipline as we saw on round 1.
Oh, there's another. Oh, that's the second penalty in that round? I guess it was. So there I saw the red number 10.
Yeah.
So we had a total of, there's another one. Oh, no, that's a different, I have the wrong video. Yeah. So let's just go through this. Let's continue with this, because this was the first attempt when they got all the penalties for the so-called wrong sequence, which was adjusted later on. It was actually not the same as the other two teams did. So we will see the other jump later. This is still round 1 here. How is that possible? So let's see if we got to that. Let me go back to, it is round 1 to 4. Let's move forward to see. Okay, so now here we are in round 3 actually, as it should be. So we should be at round 3 with the Germans. We get back to the situation of XP8 afterwards, or maybe we can do that while we watch the Germans. So the 3 8-way teams did 2 different sequences actually, because they had 2 different sequences on the leaderboard that they used for the round, and it was a flaw on the leaderboards, which was caused by the organizer, by myself. And I have apologized already 100 times for that, but the point deductions that XP8 got were removed later on because they did the correct sequence actually, and they ended up with the 22 points that they deserved. So now we watch the sequence of the Germans in round 3. So let's keep going. and move on to, I think we should see XP8 next again. And then Matt, maybe then you can continue with your evaluation of round 3 for XP8.
Sure. Here they have a solid exit and a very good transition. It looked like they probably would have had a good break time to that 7 out the door. I wasn't able to get a time on that one in particular. Video is a little glitchy here, but we see their 6s are generally okay. And I remember in contrast, looking at the French jump on this round, their 6s were very tight. The French 6s were, and you know, I think that's really commendable. You can see that here USA's get stretched out a little bit, but 7s look technically correct. The 3s are nice and tight. We have a long finish, it looks like there on one of the 7s.
That's a 23.
But for me, it maybe is the top score. It's very hard to catch 24, so this is one of the best jump of this meet for XP8.
Okay, now France is coming, Jeremie. Maybe you can continue with your introduction of some of the team members which are important. Like we had the youngest one, Aubin, in the tail slot. And now maybe we should go to the most experienced one.
It's always easy to be hard with your friends. So with the black helmet, it's mature. He's in the lineup now, but he's a coach as well. I don't want to present him anymore. You know him. So yeah, with his piece is a little bit too tight, as Matt said, with 6. So they come a little bit in the middle in 6, and it makes the 6 longer. And again, with Albin in the tail, we have no stationary contact for start of 7, so they get -1 on this round as well. But for the rest, it's 3 blocks. The technique were good, and it's a good job as well for me.
You're talking about the tail flyer. I had mentioned yesterday when we talked that I really had a great time watching him, you know, just his style, his aggression. And I had no idea he's just 18 years old. That's pretty remarkable. So I'm sure we're going to see continue to see some good things out of him in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can you look at the German with the sequence in the meantime? And Jeremie, maybe you can quickly explain. You have a very exciting history together with Mathieu Bernier. In fact, you know, you were together in 4-way and 8-way. You won world championships together and all that.
Yeah. Well, we spent a lot of time together in the B team, farm teams first, and then we started together with the first world meet in Croatia in 2004, and then we kept going together until 2010, and then I stopped, but he is still in the game, like Mate. They are like warriors.
Yeah.
So they never give up, they never stop. So they are still flying high level.
So there's was with an 11. So that's a slower round, obviously. Did we call that the slowest round of the draw, Matt?
I'm not 100% sure on that because there were some other scores that were pretty slow later on as well. But
yes, it is.
yeah. So on this, one of the differences that I saw between the U.S. and the French on this one is that the 10s for the U.S. tended to open up a bit more. I think if I remember correctly, the French jump, their 10s were a little bit tighter. I didn't get any block times on the first 4 jumps, but as we progress, I tried to get block times from then on.
And if I remember correctly, this was actually the first round where the French team tied XP8. XP8 won the first 3 rounds, wasn't it? I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So we see the French team that's an 18 without penalties once again. XP8 by far the cleaner team so far, right? With less point deductions.
Yes, and that's one of the things that I noticed in general during the first 4 rounds. Is that it seems like in their between point to point, they're a little more static. Uh, in their setups and their builds, whereas some of the random work with the French, it seems to breathe a little bit, and they carry some momentum into it, which causes some inefficiency.
And now I'm doing the same thing as Matt has been doing. Actually, I'm trying to watch Aubin and Mathieu at the same time. You know, they are opposite of each other. Actually, they're far away, but it's interesting to watch the youngest, by far the youngest medal contender together with the most experienced.
And the red helmets, it's the 3 girls. And
yeah, right.
Blue helmet is the main.
Yeah.
On this jump, this is the first clean sheet for France after 3 times -1 of the first free jump. But for me, maybe it was one bust on E. But at least for the first time, we have no bust on this round.
Yeah. Oh. So we can turn this off here now. And then let's do a summary of, let's summarize the first day of, we are now after, well, first day, you know, kind of, that's our first day. So we are now after round 4. The first 4 rounds are complete, and XP8 is 5 points ahead. So what would you think? Let's say you are the live competition now, you go to sleep. Matt is going to bed with 5 points ahead. Jeremie is going to bed 5 points behind. What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
my thoughts on that are that 5 points isn't a very big lead. It's you've got a very small amount of comfort there, but nothing to rest on for sure. As we'll see that things start to change in day 2.
Yeah, Jeremie, what are your thoughts? You are 5 points behind now going into the second day.
This is not the main point. This is not the main point, but without the same draw, it's not easy to compare. But for sure, the US team, they did a very great job with the jump with 7 and 6. And the France, they have to fix the problem with the NJ because they lose 2 times. They have -3, and it's too much. So yeah, but for me, on the first day, they were not so far off each other, and but for sure, XP are ahead.
So would you change your strategy for the next day, or what would you think? What would be the message or the mission for the second day, Jeremie?
Don't be sad. It's like this. You are behind for 5 points, and don't try to do more than you do usually. So the best answer is to come back in the middle. Don't cry and don't be too nervous, and just wait your time to come back. And if you just try to give your best, fly as usual, and maybe forget a little bit this small gap, because hey, many times in sport, even if you remember the 4-way battle in Australia between Hayabusa and Airspeed, it was a huge gap after a few rounds, and finally they were tied for the last round. So everything can happen in a way or in another one. So just keep going to believe in what you do, and tomorrow is another day.
Matt, what's your mission on the second day? What's the advice for the second day for XP8?
So the second day we had a conversation about this, right? This is a unique situation for a meet like this where, usually you see what the other team's scores are and how they're performing. And sometimes you can strategize based on that, tweak your performance slightly in your approach. But, since we didn't have this, neither of the teams had this. It was they weren't able to do that in the moment. It's easy to be able to go back, into hindsight. But my only advice would be to continue on the current course, that we've been on. Don't get too comfortable in that lead, for sure, because things can change quickly. As we start to see in day two. My advice or my input, with the team would be to continue with attention to the fundamentals with the fall rates and setups, and make sure that we stay disciplined in that going into day two and not lose focus.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's go into round two. No, day two, the second set of 4 rounds on the second day of the Cloud Mondial. Here it is, and it begins with the German team begin. How were the sequences? How was the set of the second 4 sequences?
So I saw for this sequence 18 LBF, aside from a rough first page and some distance in their 18s, some counterclockwise rotation in most builds, they had a solid foundation. We talked about their tunnel training. Playing, I know several of the members of this team have been to tunnel camps in the past, and, it definitely shows in their knowledge of 8-way. I think the issues that we're starting to see show is that things are breathing away from the center since we don't have those tunnel walls. But with more, as they get more comfortable throughout the competition, we see that starts to go away and they become more disciplined in their setups.
15, round 5, first jump of the second part of the Mondial for the Airbus team. The 8-way Airbus team, they have a 4-way team too, that we will see later in the 4-way competition, which is not a part of the 8-way as it is with the French team. So here is France. I'm going to do the same thing again. You know what, this time I'm going to watch the red helmets. Jeremie, who are the 3 girls?
Christine, Sophia, and Gael.
Yes.
So this is the 4-way team.
3 of them. There must be 4 for a 4-way team.
But the 4 now will it's Pamela. Because Clementine stopped the project after this year, so that's why Mathieu is in now.
Yeah, and Pamela is not doing 8-way. She's only she's
supposed to do only 4-way.
That's why we have the black helmet in there.
Yes. And on this jump, it's what we said last time, the big difference was with the key. The key man did a very good job with XP8, and it was so fast. So yeah, it was a great job. And the small gap in this jump is on the key with the rhythm.
There's one thing I wanted to give a compliment to the person who's keying the L for the French team. That was a really fast key on that. But yeah, for round 5 for the US, there were some engineering differences. The French took a lefty 18 and had a different F build. The 18 block times that I got for US was 4.03, 3.05, 2.98, 2.88, and 2.94. They were within range of the French block times on that. The break time for France on this jump was 2.8 compared to USA's 3.83. So the US break time is about a second slower. The US had a long finish on the first 18, but they're like Jeremy said, they're making up the difference in efficiency and key speed. They look slower because there's less wasted movement and they're flying in this particular jump. I think the French engineering led to a faster 18 build, but it took them longer to key it.
And they added another 2 points to the lead, right? So at the end of round 5 now, XP8 is 7 points ahead, if I have that correctly. This is end of round 5. Yeah, there were 5 points after the first 4 rounds. Now there are 2 more points after round 5. So at this point in time, Jeremie is probably thinking, "Oh my God, my French team is
Yeah.
losing."
Oh yeah, as you say, this is the worst period, I think, because after the first day, you can always say what I said a few minutes ago. Tomorrow it will be different. Tomorrow we will have a better result, but after the first jump of the second day, if you lose again 2 more points, yes, it starts to be very hard in your head. But what you can do, you have to keep going, don't give up, and give your best.
And in the meantime, Matt is looking at the sequence of round 6 that the German team Airbus is presenting there for us. Again, what kind of sequence do we have, Matt?
So we have a very technical sequence in this round. The D is notoriously difficult and fragile on the hill, and we can see that the sequence gives the Germans some challenge. With block 15, you know, we see some space and maybe some miscommunication going on in some of the timing of that block for them.
And we'll see right away how France is dealing with the same sequence. I remember I mentioned, or those came into my mind when I was watching the sequence, actually, that it is kind of funny that two blocks are being drawn in the same sequence where 2 pieces are doing nothing and 2 pieces are doing the work. So we have, by coincidence, they're falling into the same sequence. We see that here, that's the French team. You know, 2 of the pieces, well, they do a little bit, you know, the rear piece has to move forward a bit, but
yeah, and exit D, it's not easy to do. Very hard exit D.
Yeah.
The French save it a little bit, and the XP8 were good.
But we also see that France is trying now, kind of, you know, they probably realize, well, we're not performing at our peak levels, so they're picking up the pace.
Yes. Yeah.
And we see that in the score, you know, the 22 is probably close to a top score there. What do you think?
22, 24, I think maybe would be a top scorer there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do better, I think.
Here, the U.S. I believe they had a faster break time than France on this one. They had a 4.6, where France had a 5.3. USA lost command of their performance in this round, in my opinion. They're not flying as clean and efficient with a bus, and there's a brain lock in here too. The block times that I got for this for block 20 in particular, where France got within a 2.7 to 2.1 range, and the US got 2.1 to 1.8 range. So the block times in the 20 were a little bit quicker, but yeah, when as far as the scores and how they shake out there, it wasn't enough. You know, we had an issue at the end of this jump with the brain lock, which cost a lot of time.
And this round 6, was now the first round of the French comeback. It was the first round that you won. I mean, not you, Jeremie, but I know that your heart is still beating, you know, for the French 8-way team, even though you're coaching the Falcons. We'll get to that later. But that was the first round that France won.
Yes, it was not unbelievable performance, but it was a little bit better than US. So yes, it was normal on this round.
Yeah, I guess that the XP8 helped a little bit, you know, for France, made it a little easier to win the first round. But the funny thing is, again, nobody knew that actually anyway. You know, nobody knew that.
We were too happy with 7 points ahead. So.
Well, but we are trying to, you know, we were, the whole purpose of this Cloud Mondial was to resemble a real competition. And so we are doing that right here, right now. Germany, again, Airbus showed us a sequence of round 7.
Yeah.
What's coming up to us here, Matt, in round 7 for the sequence?
Well, in round 7, I just wanted to comment on the Germans' performance there. Their their 17s, their compressed turns were really good. They had some similar issues they've had in the previous jumps where things were breathing a little bit too much. But other than that, I thought their compressed turns and their 17s looked really good.
Very interesting engineering here. We want to look at that too. You know, the French team, Jeremie, Matt, the outside people are cogging compared to experience. So
Yes.
explain that to us, please.
Yeah, for me, the French technique is it's a little bit more. It's hard for the solo outside, the tail and the front guy, because they finish blind. So it's never easy, but you avoid the collision with the legs of the pieces. So both of them maybe at the time could be the same, but you try to avoid the collision with the French technique, but on the other hand, you finish blind. And the second thing is what we said last time as well, is about A is a little bit more tight with two lines from front, and it make it faster for the setup of one.
So let's look at the outside, the single flyers on the block here now the other way with the other technique. Matt?
So here we're working on block 17 currently, and I remember Team USA had some discussions about this at their last camp in Arizona during this, and what they talked about was slowing down the compressed pieces a little bit because the constraints tend to be the point and tail, because they have a slight leg cross in this configuration when they're going forward. So they discussed, just slowing down the compressed pieces a little bit and arriving more together so that everyone finishes more together. But on this jump in particular, the USA got a break time of 3.9 compared to France's 3.3, so they were a little slower there. The block times were for the 17 were 4.3 to 2.65, as compared to France's 3.6 to 2.95. I think there was a loss of discipline on the P-build, leading to confusion and a bust, and possibly some separation there as well. And we talked about the compressed pieces being very fast, but needing to slow those down a little bit so that you can deal with the constraints of the point and the tail. And there was some loss of efficiency with some dirty builds and a lack of discipline that we saw in the first 4 rounds with Team USA.
Well, it would be interesting to see. This is what the teams are doing now, but there's no guarantee, that they will do the same next year. There's still 1 year between now and the real Mondial, and techniques will be reevaluated and compared, and all that kind of stuff is going to take place in the meantime. Here's round 8 of the Germans. What do we get?
A good job. It's because it's not easy with 12. It's never easy to build a 12, and block 8 was good as well. So for me, for German, it was a very good round, and Q was good as well. So it's a tough job, this dive, and they did it good.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Jeremie said. It's a technical sequence, and the Germans showed very good discipline in their setups. Good technique in their 8 turns. Their Q builds were just breathing a little wide, but all in all, yeah, very good performance by them. I'm curious to know whether they sat down and had a conversation, before this jump and going into the rest of the competition about cleaning things up and being a bit more disciplined, or if it just happened naturally.
Yeah, we have British weather in France now. industrial haze for round 8 for the French team.
Yeah, and it's one brain lock from the coach, and but the 8 were good, so it's a little bit aggressive technique on the 8, and too tight for 12. We talk about that as well. It's not the same engineering as speed, so
fast 8.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of energy, or more energy than on the first. Well, the same energy was in run, but it looks like more controlled energy now in the second 4 rounds. And I think they won that round again. Let's see why. They gained another point, I believe it was on this one, due to a penalty.
Because XP get -1 on end of block 8. Otherwise, they were at the same time.
Yeah, just a couple of comments that I've got on the French performance on that round was their break time was 3.45. Their block 8 times ranged between 3.9 and 3.2. They had some weather there, which didn't seem to appear to have a negative impact on their performance, which is kudos on them. And I noticed that they use the shearing technique on their 12s as well, which is different from what XP8 does. And USA had a break time of 4.9. Their 8 times range between 4.11 and 3.18. They had a long Q build, which cost the team. It took a non-standard Q build, which wasn't as good from the 8, but tended to alleviate congestion for the front piece going into the 12 build. The USA uses the cogging technique on the 12, which is different, as we discussed earlier. And we had a bust on the finish 8. I think they had a cleaner 12 build, but I'm not sure if it was any faster than the French's there. Obviously, you know, the French did better on the jump with the score. They took, as Jeremy pointed out earlier, they took different engineering on the 8 build. And just to satisfy my own curiosity, I got some times between the French build times and the USA build times from the 12 to the 8, and the French got 2.3 to 1.9, and the USA got 2.1 to 1.69. So again, those are comparable there as well. I don't think that made too much of a difference.
Yeah, so that penalty created this 1 point difference by the end that we see here, which means like France won 3 consecutive rounds now. The last 3 rounds, 5, 6, 7, 8, went all to France. And we are at the end of the second part, the end of the second day. And France has caught up. Now we are seeing a 1 point difference after the second day. And once again, we will try to simulate now that we are at a real competition. Second day is over. XP8 won the first day clearly. France came up with a better performance in round 2, created a 1 point difference. And your advice, Jeremie, worked well, whatever it was for the second day, because they were catching up. And Matt, what happened?
Yeah, you can say this is beer time. You have to be happy. Yeah, the dynamic is changing totally on the second day. You come close to them for a long time now. We are used to be underdog in France. This position is not too much a problem, so we are used to be, even if it's not true. We like this. I don't want to say we like, but we have no problem with this position. So that's why also, even if you are behind them, it's not a catastrophe. You can always come back, and it's what's happened on this second day. Not only because it's a high performance from France, because as you saw, it was brain-locked and not perfect jumps, because this is not their peak at this time. But anyway, you are back in the game and very close to the XP.
Yeah, let's take a quick look at the leaderboard now. Well, now we have it only after, maybe, let's see if I find the leaderboard that shows it after round. I don't think I have one here. After round 8, we had only, yeah. What is the situation now after round 8? We're going into round 9 and into round 10. So let's play the same game, and I'm gonna ask Matt first. The French team has caught up. It's a 1 point difference. We're going into the last day of the competition with a 1 point advantage. What what would you do if you go safe? You're risking to be caught. If you go fast, you're risking of making mistakes. What do you do?
Right. So you talked about the two different ends of the spectrum there, either playing it too safe or going too fast and risking, coming off the rails. So maybe, think about a strategy that's somewhat in between, where you find a good mix of being fast, but, having the finesse and having the discipline that we had on day one with the setups, which led to better efficiency, which in turn will lead to a higher yielding score. I would say that the team just, needed to refocus and double down on thinking about the fundamentals and being smooth and not having any issues. Just go with the solid performance. Don't hold back, but don't let it fly on the off the rails either. And we, some of the interesting. If we were in a normal meet, that would be my input with the team. But as we can, or as we know, this wasn't a normal competition, so it's interesting to see how the different factors played into the team's performance. I'm not sure what the French were doing at what part of their training in the camp when they decided to do this meet was. I think with Team USA, they had been training for quite a while already, and you could see that some fatigue was starting to set in and some loss of focus at that point. But I think it was good that they were able to rally and kind of refocus going into day 3.
Jeremie, you are 1 point ahead now, going into the last 2 rounds. And 1 point behind going into the last 2 rounds. What do you tell your team?
Yeah, it's for sure it was a second good day, but it's what Matt say. It's a mix. It's always a mix. You know how you fly. You know your speed. You know where is your strong blocks, your strong exits. You know where you are not the best. So just keep confident. Don't start to be. It's not time to be scared. This is the showdown. This is the end of the meet. So don't be scared. Just fly as you know to do, but don't go too fast as well. Don't go nervous. Keep calm, and let's see.
And we have, and France surely has the momentum by now. There's no doubt. So it's
Yes.
Isn't that the much easier position now from coming from behind, because you have the momentum, you cut the distance from 5 to 1, and so you just tell them, I keep doing it. And isn't it more complicated for you, Matt?
Having been in both positions, I'd say being only 1 point ahead, you're going to bed that night with a little more nerves than I think you would be, coming from 1 point behind and having some momentum going into it. If you can carry, if you're in that situation, you can carry that momentum going into that next day, then it's, you can definitely use that for your advantage. And there's no guarantees on either side of that coin, as we see here. But I think usually it doesn't feel better. Just like Jeremie said, it doesn't feel better coming from 1 point behind, but you do have that momentum in this situation in your favor, and you've got to it turns into the hunter being hunted at that point. You have eyes on you're within striking range.
And 1 point, as you know, it's nothing. So also a good idea to do it is just to forget this 8 first result, and just be focused on the next next round, and then the last one. So it's what I said last time. It's 10 times 1 round. So just be focused on the next one. Forget what's happened before. Just do your best on the first one with your confident and happy, and do your best.
10 times 1 round. Let's see what happened. What is also kind of, I have to throw this in quickly, which is extremely funny actually, that and a pure coincidence. that we are in the same situation kind of at the US elections at the same time, same day, same situation, 1 point difference going into the last round. And that was last night, you know, when we had that. So it was funny on election day, you know, we are doing our Mondial showdown. I mean, extremely funny to me, and what a coincidence. Let's, yeah,
most of the US people, they are waiting the result of this competition. They are more focused on this than on the vote.
yeah, good. I want everybody to be excited about the NSL Cloud Mondial rather than election. But election is a crucial part of our lives too, so let's not ignore them. Here we go. Round 9 and 10 on the last day of the competition, and everything was said about what is possible. Airbus, the German 8-way team, introduces the sequence of round 9. Matt, you have studied it.
Yeah, here they have another solid performance from the Germans. They look more and more disciplined and in command of their performance as the jumps go on, and we definitely see that here. The 11 can be a technical block if the right attention isn't paid to it and the right amount of discipline, but they did a really good job on this.
It's a slot switcher again.
Yes.
And I think they're swinging it out at least on one slot. I see there, I think, from the finish of the Norwegian to the block there. So there's one swing move at least. I don't know if the other were swinging it too. Did you watch that, Matt? Are they swinging out of it or?
I didn't see if they were doing that. I'd have to go back and look at it more closely.
Mm-hmm. I saw one penalty, but I don't see it here. It must have come at the end of the jump. There was one red mark, but the Zoom pictures are not showing it. So let's move on. Let's look at the round 9 of the French team.
They get a good exit and a good 13, but I think maybe Matt time it, but I think it's a little bit faster from for XP8 with the 13. For the rest, it was correct. It was you can see also the difference when it's B slot for the key and even for blocks. I think the difference between A and B slot in XP is less important than in France. So as we talked about already, it's not their peak time, so they have to work on it as well, B slot, to be more close of the A slot timing.
Yeah, well, it's more difficult to train the B slots if you don't have so many jumps too, right? XP8 didn't really, you know, they had an alternate in the team or several alternates, but they trained a lot, and France was behind with training for sure. So let's say we can talk about this later too. We mentioned that briefly. XP8 round 9. What did we have? Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to say the break times that I got, Jeremy, for the French was 3.3 compared to USA's 3.65. So they're a bit faster there. Their France's block 13s were 3.6, 3.98, and 3.05 compared to our 3.74, 3.8, 3.05, and 3.74. So there were some comparable times there. Where we saw a difference was actually on block 11. The French had 1.5s pretty much across the board, where ours varied a little more. We had 1.5, 1.62, and 1.42. The US came back looking stronger in this round, more like what we've seen from them in rounds 1 through 4. They were disciplined in their setups with fast with their key speed and more machine-like in their process. On the last 13 build, we see that the machine sputters a little bit, which leads to some mistiming in the block execution, but they managed to lock in a score of a 21 and increase their lead to 2 points.
Yes, so here's once again, one more time, the Airspeed XP8 performance for round 9. And so they're winning this round by 1 point. The difference is up to 2 points again going into the last round of the competition, the next one. How exciting that still is. And I wish, of course, that France would know this now going into round 10. And of course, I wish that XP8 knew that. It would give XP8 probably confidence to just continue what they did in round 9. And France is under pressure, right, Jeremie?
Oh, at this point in the meet, it's what you can do. You can't do anything. You let point on the road and the US as well. So it's not time to think too much. You have one more round. Be focused on the last one. It's a technical one as well. 14-2 slow sequence with 2 EV and long blocks. So just be focused on it, and 2 points. It's better to be ahead, but it's not a big gap. So don't be focused too much on this topic.
Really, I mean, on a slow sequence, a 2 point difference, isn't that like an all or nothing situation? You have to put everything in that you got to, if you want to make up 2 points in one round with a slow sequence.
From my experience, you can lose or win points in any sequence, slow, fast. You remember even in Australia, you expect the in 4-way, for example, the random jump. You expect it will decide who will win this meet, and it doesn't happen like this. So any draw, any dive, you can lose and win points in any jump.
Right. So, and in our case, the teams just continued doing what they were doing anyway, because they didn't know that France was 2 points behind and XP8 2 points ahead. So
yeah, the France, they have a very impressive block 2. I think it's much faster than the XP8. But the 14, because they get -1 and end of 14, and is a little bit long, but block 2 is very, very good.
I was curious. I was looking at the penalty there a few times to see what happened. Did anybody really find out what happened there for this penalty? Did you take a closer look?
I think the back piece was a little bit long, and so they were focused on the grip with the back piece, and they didn't saw that it was more longer with the front piece. So as soon as they catch the grip with the back piece, they want to give the key, but the front piece was not there.
Okay. All right. Here's the explanation. There's a point deduction for France, and that was not very helpful to make up the 2 point difference there.
Yeah.
But of course, we know that only in hindsight. And still, well, we see it's still tight at this point, the 16 after the point deduction on block 14, that is, right?
And I think they just start block 2 on the freeze frame, and the XP8 they are close to finish. I think I give the end of block 2 to XP8 on the freeze frame. I give them the point 18.
Okay, we see that now. Here's XP8 round 10.
Yeah, so here with XP8, we see a break time of 3.65, where the French had a longer break time of 4.77. Which I think, made a little bit of a difference there. On block 2, like Jeremie said, their block 2s are incredible. The Frenches are, they got 2.88 and 2.79. But because it's their block 2 is if you get anything around a 2.8, that's considered very good. So awesome to them on their block 2 technique. The US had a break time, which is over a second faster. As we said, this is the inverse of what we've seen for most of the competition before this. I think more often than not, the French had faster break times. So that's something we'll take a look at, and I'm sure we'll work on in the future. In this round, we see Team USA looking strong in the first page until there's an incomplete finish on block 2, resulting in a bus. Like I said, their block times are generally slower than the French in this round, but I think the random work is cleaner and more efficient, which allows the U.S. to key faster and get in and out of formations quicker. Yeah, so that ends off the meet. In summary, from what I saw, the U.S. team's strong performance in rounds 1 through 4 gave them the buffer they needed to counter the French team's strong rally in rounds 5 through 8. But if you take the NJs into consideration, both teams are pretty much on the same pace, and you can see where both have strengths and weaknesses. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the teams address those weaknesses over the next year, and hopefully COVID-19 won't be too much of a factor, and all teams across the world will be able to get back to some serious training, and we'll see some great results at the Mondial next year in Russia.
So here we see the final leaderboard now. 200 flat, France 2 points behind, and Germany with a 13.6 average. That's how it came out at the end. That's the final word, because we had XP8 and Germany performing round 11, but France didn't get to do the extra round, which would have exhausted the complete dive pool. We will show the XP8 and the German rounds later on, in the aftermath. But after 10 rounds that all three did, that's what we have. 20 average, 19.8, and then 13.6 for the Germans. Matt, you mentioned already, we'll see what's going to happen from here on now until that was the whole purpose. One of the purposes, you get a starting point now. What are you going to do? You're going back now in December. You will train with the team again. And then hopefully we'll have a Shamrock Showdown 8-way in March next year, outdoor competition. What are you going to work on from here on until then?
Well, personally, I'm going to try to get myself stronger so that I'm ready to go for the training camp in December and on into the next year. The surgeon has cleared me to do that in advance. He did want me to wait another month to jump, which we talked some about yesterday, which was a bit disappointing for me when I went into the appointment with him the other day. But I can understand his reasonings. If I were to have a rough landing or something like that, that would set me back a bit. So another month isn't too bad in the grand scheme of things to get myself physically stronger. But as a team, I think we could see that, we need to work on our break times a little bit, because as I said, the French break times were a bit faster. So that's probably something that we'll address when we get back to training. Cleaning up some of our block technique on the 2s, the 14s, some other ones that were some of the weaknesses, maybe tightening up our 10s a bit. And, thinking about maintaining the same focus that the team had in the middle of the competition rounds, as opposed to the beginning and the end, to maintain a more consistent performance throughout the meet.
Jeremie, what are you going to tell Mathieu what he has to work on from here on until the Shamrock and then to the Mondial?
Yes, we are just first. Congratulations to XP8. Congratulations, Matt. And this average is a little bit lower than what they do in Eloy in the last World Cup. But first, this draw was a little bit slow with many blocks in the exit. So it doesn't help to go fast with the block in the first point, and block 4 and 16 are missing because we are on the jump off. So it's a slow draw. The block techniques, as Matt say, it's hard to say something because I don't know exactly how many jumps each team achieve in 2020. So it's hard to know where they are. And for sure, I'm pretty sure all the block techniques will be much better next year in Russia, if we can go in Russia. So for me, for France, they have to be a little bit more stronger in exit to reduce a little bit the difference with XP8, and also it's helping to launch the jump with the confidence and the speed. And if already you fight a little bit with the exit and the first page, it's hard then to get the rhythm and the eye and fly fast. So first point exit, and the second point as well reduce the difference with the key machine from the XP8. So it's very hard. You can't copy them because they get so much experience from years and years. But for sure, you can win a little bit time on this point as well.
What will you do? This is what you would tell your friend Mathieu Bernier for the French team. What will you do with the Qatar Falcons to get them to the medal level?
We want to train first, because it's what I said to you yesterday. We stopped for 6 months, 6 months without tunnel and skydive. So it's a very long break from March to September this year. So we just restart now, and we expect good weather, no injury, and hard skydive and lot of jumps, because we need, first of all, we need to train, and I will do my best and to bring them on the top. It will be very hard to catch these three teams, Russia, France, and US, for sure. This is a gap now with them. Even if they were third in the last World Meet, now this is not our position anymore. But again, it's like what we said in the middle of a meet. Don't think too much and do your best and work hard. Keep confident, keep working. Don't give up. Don't be sad. And this is it is what it is. And we stopped for 6 months. This is not our fault, but now we have to work hard to stay in the game.
And this was just the NSL Cloud Mondial. It was just a test, so there's plenty of time from here on forward. And I wish everybody good luck and the best weather and the best conditions and the least restrictions for training and all that, so we can have exciting competition next year. Thank you very much, most of all from me to you, for spending that time, taking that time, and I hope it was interesting for you too. It was extremely interesting and exciting for me, and I hope for the audience too. And again, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. And good luck with everything. Good luck, you, Jeremie, with the Falcons and with your heartbeat for the French team. And Matt, for your recovery and for XP8 and the next season. And I really appreciate that you were here for us with your expert commentary and all the things that we talked about.
Oh, thank you very much, Kurt. I appreciate it, Jeremie. That was great fun, and congratulations to the French team for a great performance, and also to the Germans for a very solid performance as well.
Thank you, and good luck for the next few months.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, you too.
Goodbye. Au revoir.